much work just getting onto this chair. Oh fuck, I just remembered how I wanted to start this video. Hold on. Hi. So I don't normally make very serious videos on this channel because if you look at what I make, I don't take myself very seriously, but with everything that's going on, I felt like I had to do something. So, hi. My name is Cesario Tirado-Ortiz. My pronouns are they, he. I am a non-binary theater artist. And if that says anything, you can probably guess what this video is going to be about. Also, you probably saw the title and thumbnail, so you know. Essentially, shit's been going crazy, but I think one of the main things in theater right now is that people seem to think that whatever is going on with theater and the trans community is a new thing, and as someone who, again, is a trans theater artist, it's not. It's really not. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to go over the history of trans rep in theater and also talk a bit about Jagged Little Pill. This was a long time coming. Anyone who's my friend who ever asked me my opinion on theater these days hears my rant about this. And honestly, I'm very thankful that we are talking about it now. However, it's a conversation that should have been talked about 2 years ago when we started talking about it. I digress. I also want to clarify that when I'm going to be talking about this, I am talking about it through my lens. I am a non-binary trans-masc person who is white passing. Even though I'm Puerto Rican, I'm still very much white passing. So I won't be able to speak for every experience, but I can give you at least mine. So I highly recommend that after you watch this video, please look out for other trans narratives and trans people and support and uplift trans people of color. Yeah? We're good? We're good? Okay, cool. I will also be linking some prominent trans artists in the description of this video, and I will also mention them at the end of this video. So hopefully you guys can, after watching this, hearing my 2 cents, go and visit them and hear their 2 cents and also support them. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Let's talk history. Back in the olden days, there was Shakespeare. No, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Every time we talk about trans rep in theater, every time we always start with, in Shakespeare's time, they all wore dresses and no, okay? Yes, was it a thing that women were not allowed to be in theater? Yes. Did that mean that by that token, every man who wore a dress in the Shakespeare play was then a trans woman or doing drag? Not really. I could make a whole separate video on drag and theater and how that has nothing to do with transness, but that's not the subject of this video. Instead, I want to talk about specifically trying to target trans demographics in theater. And I could go into older plays, but I think we really need to start with something that I know a lot of people love, and I love it too, but let's be real. Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I'm just a sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania.
Yeah, I love Rocky Horror. It was one of my first experiences in seeing truly queer theater. Everyone always says I look like Tim Curry and Dr. Frankenfurter, which honestly, I'll take it any day. But I think we as a group of people do need to recognize that although something may have been really important to us as young LGBT people, it also may not be perfect, i.e. Rent. I think Rocky Horror, though, is one of the more egregious samples because the creator, I'm like 99% sure, I'll put something up here, is transphobic. Yeah. Plus, like, the whole suite. I don't even feel comfortable saying the title name. Like, I know I'm trans, but like, I feel like if I ever did play Dr. Frankenfurter, it would just be like, I'm just a sweet trans. From Transylvania. Like, I would feel awkward saying those words regardless. But then that brings up another point. See, a lot of times in recent years, how we've been combating Rocky Horror and trying to make it more woke is by casting trans people as Dr. Frankenfurter. Most popularly was the 2015 TV adaptation with Laverne Cox, who did an amazing job. But does that fix the character? No, it doesn't. It's still a trans character, brutally murdering people and committing sexual acts without consent. I don't know why I have to like explain that, how that's a little bad, but yeah. A show, however, that I feel like I am a bit more qualified to talk about is Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Listen, I love Hedwig. It's a show that I hold really dear to my heart and was one of the first shows that I felt I saw myself in a trans way on stage, which is great. However, weirdly enough, Hedwig is a show about a trans character where everyone denies that they're trans. If that makes sense. Hold on, I'll explain. So the character of Hedwig, if you don't know the show, essentially was a young boy who met a man and underwent a botched sex reassignment surgery so that they could get married, and then that man left Hedwig, and now Hedwig doesn't have either type of genital. It's the angry inch left over, and it's about them loving themselves and not having to rely on other people and such. It's a good message. Does that make the character trans? See, if this was modern times, which I understand we can't look at a show from like the 90s in a like modern lens, but forget the point. If we looked at where it is now, where people can get married despite what sex or gender you are, and Hedwig was allowed to marry this man as a man, would Hedwig still be considered trans? Hedwig is a very interesting character because you can really argue for either option. Because after the fact, Hedwig seems fine with this gender ambiguity that they live in, but they also did not seem like they wanted to go under the sex change regardless. However, I feel like a lot of this nuance can't really be done with Hedwig because, unfortunately, to my knowledge, most of the time when Hedwig is put on, Hedwig is not performed by a trans person. Hedwig is, when it was recently running on Broadway, I joked with my friends and said it was like every cis gay man coming out to have his turn on Broadway. Every couple of months, there'd be like new Hedwig, and it was another cis gay man. Except Darren Criss. He's still like the straight gay guy that everyone's just like, we'll allow Darren. Get on in here, Darren. We love you, Darren. So how can we expect these cis gay men, excluding Darren, to tell these stories when this story intrinsically needs a trans voice? And now to take away from like some musicals and such, I do want to talk about one of my personal favorite plays that was near Broadway a couple years back here.
I was a father and a mother. I am a father and a mother.
She's not homeschooling me, I'm homeschooling her. It's fucking exhausting.
Written by Taylor Mack, who is an award-winning non-binary trans artist. It is a reconstruction of the family drama play with a trans character named Max, who uses neopronouns, by the way. I believe they are here, Z and here. And one of the coolest parts about it is that the trans character isn't perfect. And none of the other characters are perfect either. This isn't a situation of like Dr. Frankenfurter where it's like, oh god, but look, that trans person is doing evil things. Well, yeah, that's not great. Here is a story where it could be anyone, and that's what I really like about it. I really highly recommend reading it if you are someone who wants to start getting into trans theater. It's chef's kiss. I really love it. That's a bit of the history I can tell you. And that's not going into some of the newer shows in the past couple of years where they've tried to include trans characters. I can talk about characters from shows like Head Over Heels, which had a non-binary character, and then got misgendered by the New York Times by Ben Brantley. Don't think I forgot. And then things like Anne Juliet, which also has a non-binary character. Although I will fact check myself, but I'm pretty sure that the actor who played that character was cis. I will correct myself here if it's not so. Also, weirdly enough, one of the most progressive shows in recent times has been Emoji Land. Yeah, the show with emojis in it has trans characters, because apparently all the emojis are non-binary, which then means that all the characters are being portrayed by cis actors. But honestly, the boldest take of saying that emojis are non-binary really just overshadows that, and I honestly kind of love it. It's kind of hilarious. I'm down with the cause. I'm down with it. I think it's funny, and I feel like it would be remiss to not talk about the fact briefly that A Strange Loop featured a trans actor, which means that it's the first Pulitzer Prize winning musical to feature a trans actor. And I just think that's really amazing. So good on you, A Strange Loop. I love you. Which then means that I can't avoid it any longer. Let's talk about Jagged Little Pill. What do you say? If you don't know what happened with Jagged Little Pill, here is my quickest rundown that I can give you. This is a jukebox musical of Alanis Morissette's album, Jagged Little Pill, which you couldn't tell from the title. Yeah. And instead of going the route where a lot of jukebox musicals do, where they try to like do Alanis Morissette's whole life in the album, kind of like sort of Carole King kind of thing, or Jersey Boys. Instead, it's like they tried to make like a plot, Mamma Mia style, but not as successfully as Mamma Mia. See, the issue with Jagged Little Pill as a show is that I think they tried to go and talk about every single issue in the world, and and then did none of them successfully. I saw a play, actually, in London right before all of Miss Rona. It was called My Brilliant Friend, parts 1 and 2. Each part was 2.5 hours long, which meant I spent around like 6 hours watching this damn play. And I felt it tried to tackle every single issue. Sexism, racism, mob bosses. And I remember distinctly during the second part, during the intermission, I turned to my two friends and I said, well, at least they haven't talked about gender fluidity yet. In the next scene after intermission, they had a guy come out in a dress and be like, hello everyone, and I was like, no! Stop! That's how it feels to watch Jagged Little Pill. However, I think, at least from what people said of the arts production, they dealt with Joe pretty well as a character. Off-Broadway, it was a character named Joe who was portrayed by Lauren Patton, where the character, I believe, is the partner of the main character, and is non-binary. And you can't really say, they're not really, because they are. The character gets dead named, their pronouns are they, them throughout the show, and their discussion of gender is constantly talked about, to the point where with You Oughta Know, the big show-stopping number by Lauren Patton, who, this might seem mean, but at this point I feel like she has dug herself enough in this hole that I can be a little mean. It's very interesting how this apparently is her big show-stopping number, and she can't seem to change her facial muscles other than, "'Cause I'm here to remind you of the best you." Like, why is she doing that? I never understood. I think at this point we're allowed to be a little bitter though. So, trans people out there, be mean. You're allowed. We deserve it. So, they wrote a trans character. They might have done it accidentally. Those things happen all the time. But they definitely wrote a trans character. And they knew that. Multiple times on social media, Jagged Little Pill's social media team made sure to respond to people coming to see the show talking about Joe being non-binary, and confirmed it. There are screenshots of this happening. Lauren Patton herself even went around saying, yes, that's exactly what I meant to do with Joe. I'm so glad you saw that. I'm not discrediting Lauren Patton's queerness and her sexuality. However, she has been very, very upfront on the fact that she is a cis woman. I don't know who needs to be told that sexuality and gender are separate, but they are, so jot that down. So at this point, we're thinking, oh, a character being non-binary is going to go on Broadway? That's amazing! And then the tweets disappeared, and Lauren's tweets disappeared, and the show opened on Broadway, and everyone started to realize what had happened. In the time between off-Broadway to on-Broadway, Jagged Little Pill got rid of Joe being trans. Her pronouns were now she, her. Lauren Patton was still Joe. And the show proceeded to gaslight everyone. Suddenly, they're writing posts being like, well, we never intended that Joe is trans or non-binary. We never said that Joe was trans. Lauren Patton started saying this all over the place. So for the past 2 years, essentially what has been happening is, hey, Jagged Little Pill, why did you take away Joe being non-binary? And Jagged Little Pill either being completely silent or saying, no, Joe was never trans, ever. Now, remember how I said that Jagged Little Pill as a show talks about every single issue? I mean that genuinely. All of the show is just talking about every single issue. So it's really odd that the one issue they got rid of was this one. And it's very clear why. The Tony Awards does not have a gender-neutral acting award. Essentially, it's very transparent that the reason they switched it around was because they realized that Lauren Patton could get them a Tony Award. And if they kept Lauren Patton, two things either needed to happen. Keep Joe as a trans character and deal with the backlash that you cast a cis woman in this role, or change the character to be cis for Lauren. Kind of clear which one they went with. People accidentally write queer narratives all the time. It's actually quite common. For example, when I was in high school, I wrote a character named Ellis Island who I thought was a cis woman. Have you ever met a cis woman who would actually be named Ellis Island? Let's be real, that is a trans name if you've ever heard it in your life. It's fine if you accidentally write a queer narrative. There's two ways to go about it though. Apologize and say that isn't what you meant and that you're going to try to do something different, while on the other hand, commit to it and rectify your wrong. Instead of realizing that they had something really good with Joe being non-binary and then casting a trans person in that role, and then by uplifting that trans person and trans people and advocating for that actor to get the first gender neutral acting award in Tony Awards history, they went the lazy way. And therefore, it's gonna be their downfall. Everything came to a head a couple of days ago when Christian Lewis, who I adore and have been following on Twitter for a bit now, released an article about Jagged Little Pill, which I highly recommend and I have linked in the description below. In it, they talk about all of the situation that I basically went over now, while also talking about the trans people in the show. Yep. On top of all of this, there are trans actors in Jagged Little Pill, and none of them play Joe. They're all ensemble and understudies. And Jagged Little Pill has never mentioned the fact that Ezra Menas, who is in the ensemble and is an understudy for Joe, ended up actually contributing a lot to Joe's character and their being trans. Never mentioned. Once again, trans people not acknowledged. Shit went sideways. People started reading the article, and people who were not informed about Jagged Little Pill were now informed. And people were pissed. People were, quote, retweeting, ratioing Jagged Little Pill's stuff to hell. And especially since recently, a couple days ago, right before the article dropped, I believe that it's so funny to me. I can't write this. Like, I know I'm a playwright, but I can't write this shit, but they did a panel on gender fluidity with, like, the creative team and Lauren Patton to, like, talk about, like, the character of Joe and being like, oh yes, it's so interesting, but we never meant that they were trans. Especially especially the part where Lauren Patton admits that she stopped saying that Joe was trans at stage doors because she wanted the experience to be more universal. Yikes! So what does Jagged Little Pill do? I'll tell you what they did. They released an apology. I feel like a drama channel right now at this point.
Hi everyone. So as you can see, I am not in my nicer setup. I was editing this video and it turns out that the latter half of this video got corrupted. Yay! So it's not as pretty looking as it was, but I just wanted to kind of go over what the last few minutes of that section said. Essentially, I went over how this apology was not well received at all. It got ratioed to hell. I put up some screenshots of some of my favorite responses. And not only was it so badly received, but Ezra Menas, the same non-binary actor who was understudying Joe and who developed that character into being trans as they were written, started speaking out and writing a lot of pieces about how we trans people need to get together and need to speak about these situations. And a lot of people are speculating that they have left the show, which is why they're being so outspoken now. There's no full confirmation, but that's kind of what's happening right now. It is nuts, and I have never seen anything like this in theater history, but it's satisfying. It's good to see that this is happening because genuinely this needed to happen a long time ago. Which leads into, what do we do next?
I think we're at a point where we just want to have an answer and say, well, we can do this now to fix it. But I don't think we can get to that point easily. I also want to clarify, I don't know all the answers. I'm a college student, and I also think we shouldn't expect all trans people to just have the answer immediately. For now, awareness is key. And I know a lot of people in the theater community who are not on Twitter don't know about this, which is primarily one of the reasons why I made this video. I wanted people to be able to know what the fuck was going on. And there's no excuse at this point. Prior to me going back to Manhattan, I was having these discussions about Jagged Little Pill and having to deal with people just say, oh, but I don't know, there's just not a lot of proof. But don't you like the music? Come on, the show is so meaningful. Maybe to you, but not for us, not for trans people. They have literally outwardly said that this show is not for trans people. Not in just saying that Joe is not trans, but by isolating and ridiculing their trans followers, actors, creatives. That is the issue here. So, if you're cis and you're watching this right now and you're at the end of this and you're still like, well, I'm unconvinced. I don't have anything to say to you. I don't have anything to tell you, and I can't convince you that this is an issue. But if you see this and you want to help, there's a lot going on. I recommend doing more research about trans rep. What shows do you know actually feature trans characters played by trans people? Odds are, probably not a lot. Do you follow trans people? If you're my friend, do you know any other trans people other than me? I recommend, I don't know, looking around. I'd also like to recommend, like, just embracing trans theater. While I mentioned here as an example, Taylor Mack isn't the only trans creative. So I would recommend looking at these amazing people as well. Some of them I follow on Twitter, and they're amazing people who I've had lovely discussions with. And I think that, and reading their work, especially now, is really important. If you're cis and you want to help, you need to do two things. You need to speak up, but you also need to shut up. Speak up for trans people. Let them speak. Let them have their voice. Let it be known that this shit will not stand. But you also need to shut up and let trans people speak when they need to talk. And this is something that I try to do when I think about things like Black Lives Matter or Stop Asian Hate. Speak out, shut up. So, are you going to make space, or are you going to gatekeep? Jagged Little Pill already made their decision. Nothing they could do right now could fix it. They made their choice. What we have to do now is listen, speak out, and shut up. And hey, if you want to support a trans person, I'm right here. Listen, I write plays about being trans, so check out my new play exchange. Subscribe to here if you want to see me maybe talk more about this. I don't know. I don't even know if this video will do well. I don't know if this will be alright. I know that this is probably going to be a risk to my career speaking out about this, but I don't care. Because it won't be a career if I wasn't going to be accepted in the first place. To trans people who just finished watching this, I love you so much. We're here. I see you. I hear you. Yeah, also, note to cis people, stop saying I see you, I hear you. I hate that. Blech. And lovely trans people, please. Use this video, send it to cis people, and be like, here's the info. I don't want to tell you. Because y'all don't have to explain that. I did it for you. You don't have to worry about it anymore. I got your back. So, here we are. It's not gonna be easy. But I do have hope. I have to have hope. Otherwise, I don't know how I'll make it through. So, I guess Jagged Little Pill really did say, Gaslight, Gatekeep, Girlboss.